Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Dance Teacher Pep Talk. I am your host, Amanda, and I am so glad you are here. This is a space for dance teachers and anyone interested in teaching dance who is looking for motivation and fresh ideas. As teachers, we spend our days motivating and giving pep talks to our students, and now this podcast is a pep talk just for you. We hope that it helps to ignite new ideas and even work through some deep dance-related thoughts before you head into the studio. Thank you for your support, and now let's get into today's episode. Hi, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Dance Teacher Pep Talk. Today, I am talking about what I learned from summer dance this year. So this is a bit of a reflection episode, but as I've spoken on many times before, if we are not reflecting as teachers, we are missing out on a huge part of our growth and a huge part for our students' growth. And so I thought in sharing some of these reflections, maybe it would also help you out there as you're preparing for your new dance season ahead as well. And so this is, like I said, all of things that I have learned or reflected on from summer dance teaching this year. Now, as we are getting ready for a new season, I also wanted to mention that this is a great time to go back to some of the beginning episodes of Dance Teacher Pep Talk, because I had a few episodes where I really detailed how I prepare myself for New Year teaching, how I prepare the space. Episodes about syllabus building and preparing the content that you're teaching. So I would highly recommend also checking back to those, and I'll be sharing those on my stories as well on Instagram at Dance Teacher Pep Talk, just as reminders as we prepare for this new season ahead. All right, so the first reflection that I had is it is hot. It is hot dancing in the summer. And depending on how you schedule your summer programs, dancers may not have danced a lot up until the point of summer dance. And this was a great reminder for me as we head into fall to make sure that we're segueing from whatever break we have taken into a safe manner. So bringing your classes in the fall, depending on how much dance they've had beforehand in the summer, you might not start them off right where they left off. In fact, it would maybe be a bit unsafe to do that because their bodies are not moving in the same way that they were at the time when they were doing their most highest level work at the end of the previous season. And so with this, I just recommend starting off with some ease into the year. And I know sometimes this confuses students because they'll say like, oh, well, we learned this last year, or, oh, we already did this. But maybe reminding them that, yes, we did do this last year or the year before, but these are building blocks to the bigger movements that we were working on, and to get our bodies and our minds to that safe space to be able to work in, it's important that we build ourselves back up to it. So taking the first couple weeks, to really just get back into the body, get back into the mind for the movement that we're doing, and really building on safe practices. And so even with summer dance, a lot of the time programs might be labeled as intensives or boot camps or, big heavy words like that, in the sense of like, we're going to go hard, we're going to go strong, and we are going to really give it our all in summer dance. But when you take a look at that, yes, I highly believe in pushing ourselves and seeing what we're capable of, but we can't just go from 0 to 100 on day one and expect that things are going to be okay. So we need to just make sure that we're building up to that point. And there's a lot of resilience that we have, there's a lot of strength and a lot of prior learning that we have as students in dance, and so we can access that pretty quickly. But just a reminder to kind of ease into that, because you will get there. It will all come back together. It will be as it was, and you will continue to advance from that point. But getting just started in a safe manner is so, so important. Other things that I reflected on after summer dance is that this is a great time to start your syllabus notes for the new year now. Because what do you notice, from the end of your year to summer? And now, how do you want to move them along, your dancers? How do you want to move your dancers along from summer to fall? And looking at summer dance, it's a great indicator. Where are the holes in the training, the gaps in the training? What needs to be filled in? And taking that to really take a look at the syllabus that you have, and also, as I mentioned, how we're going to safely begin our year, and really building on sort of like a timeline of expectations. And while it's fresh in your head, while you've just seen your dancers moving over the summer, starting to look at the syllabus, as I said now, because I think that we'll have a better idea of where we're going and how we can get there quicker and more effectively and safely in doing so, because we just saw the difference of having a break from recital to summer program, and now making sure that we're getting back to that same type of momentum from your summer program to the start of your fall season. Now, what goes with this a lot of the time is conditioning. And it's funny because, at summer intensive that I was teaching at, we had conditioning class, and I took time too to talk with the dancers about what does conditioning mean to you, or what do you expect out of a conditioning class. And conditioning, the more that I thought about it and the more that I was teaching on it, we are living in a time where dancers require not only the physical conditioning, but also the mental and emotional conditioning. They have so much access to so much that I myself know I did not have access to growing up. The effects of the social pressures and social media is a real concern in this generation. And with that comes just so much more exposure to things. And I find that they are having, bigger emotional breakthroughs, bigger difficulties with processing things, because they are constantly bombarded with all of this information and with all of this at their fingertips. They have access to everything at their fingertips all day, 24/7. And so it isn't just about conditioning for our bodies, but how can we prepare our mind and our emotion? Because I really so strongly feel that the dance studio is not just a place where they dance. It's not just a place where they grow in movement, but it is a place where they grow in their lives. They spend so much time in the studio setting, and we can really take on that role as being a supportive place for them, as being a place where they can grow and feel safe mentally and emotionally alongside all of the physical work that they're doing. And so with that, there comes a little bit more, I think, and I think back to all the interviews I've done with the inspirational teachers that I've had here on the podcast, and really, truly, all of them share the same notion. What we do is bigger than the movement. We are shaping young lives, and we really should not take that lightly. If you're thinking about incorporating mindfulness practices into your class, I say go for it. Don't put it off. The mental, social, emotional learning, just because we don't have time in an hour to fill it, see if there are ways to even fill it into the work that you're already doing in the physical exercises, because this is going to prepare them so much more for what is outside of the studio, not just when they grow up, but when they leave that day, when they open up their phones and they access their social media or whatnot, or when they go to school the next day. We can build a lot within our space that targets resiliency, strength, inner peace, inner self-love, and everything like that. We can really help to cultivate that within our spaces by creating empowering and joyful filled positive environment classrooms. At the end of your dancer's time at your studio, I think it's really important to ask yourself, are you going to be more attached to the technical growth that they made? Like, wow, that was a dancer that just worked hard all the time and they grew from this age to this age, and wow, they're just such a talented dancer. Like, are you going to be attached to that? Or are you going to be more attached about how they grew into a caring, confident individual in the community? Collectively as a whole, we are shaping these humans as they go out into their communities and go on to do great things. And, it's so many of us with dance have such a passion and a connection to the creative art. And I want you to think about, how many of your dancers have goals to become professional dancers, teachers, choreographers, something in the dance related field, because a lot of the time it's a pretty big number. Sometimes it's a smaller number. And, sometimes you have those dancers who, they want to go on to do something different, but they want to keep dance in their lives, or they want to keep movement in their lives. Maybe they're going to go off and fitness is going to be their route. Maybe they're going to be like really interested in Pilates or really interested in yoga. Whatever it is, I think that we're really building and starting and rooting a love for movement. And, dance, there's so much incredibleness to what we do. And, the technique, the pushing of the body, knowing what the body and the mind is capable of, it's just beyond like anything I can even explain. And that is why I love being a dance educator. But it really reminds me too of how much to shape as a whole beyond the technique. For those students of yours who become teachers or choreographers in the future, for me personally, I would much rather that they carry on the compassion, the love, the joy from what I was able to guide them through in their life versus all the steps, the choreography, the material that I gave to them. Okay? Because we're going to be teaching steps. We're going to be teaching technique. We're going to be teaching choreography. We're going to be putting it all together. But if that is done without compassion and love and joy, it's going to be a very lifeless connection to dance for them. It's going to be very robotic. And I feel that they're going to find their own creativity. They're going to find their own flow. The steps are the steps. They are there. We are working through the building blocks of every step. You can teach them effectively. There are so many things about being a great teacher. But when you understand how important delivery is, and what does that really come from? When you are teaching the material and we have to think about the effect of delivery, to me, that's all rooted in compassion. Because if you're in front of a group of students and you are exuding compassion, encouragement, and motivation, they are going to be so much more eager to learn the step, however it is that you're breaking down and giving it to them, versus if you come in to the studio and you just give the steps and no connection, no love or joy emitting from you. Even think about like how you would want to learn. Would you want to learn from a teacher who is enthusiastic and positive and radiant and all that they're being, or do you want to go in and learn from a teacher that is very dry and dull? So I think really, as we were talking about conditioning, this, as I was talking about things that I've learned in summer dance, it all came up from this whole notion of conditioning and how I felt it's so much more important at this time to make sure that we're including mental and emotional conditioning within our groups and our classes just as much as the physical things that we're doing, because I really feel that the days of the dry, flat, non-emotional teaching, like that's out the window. Dancers aren't looking for that. Dancers need more and they expect more, and they should. They should expect more at this time. There is nothing propelling a person forward more if it lacks inspiration and motivation, and we can't forget that. And so what I'm trying to say about all of this is when we are building in our classroom, the care, the confidence, the resilience, the compassion, these are all traits that are going to build these dancers into so much more when they leave the space, whether it's that day or years down the road when they leave the studio. And if they are going on to be teachers themselves, that to me is so much more worthy of being passed down than how I taught steps or how I choreographed or whatnot, because they're going to find their own way. Like I said, they're going to find their own way, but to learn it from someone providing that safety, that encouragement, and that love in that nurturing environment, that is going to make all the difference. And so we can really get into our heads a lot about a new year, or at least I can, about like making sure that we want to achieve all that it is that we want to achieve and do all that it is that we want to do, and to tackle the syllabus and make sure we're getting all the movement goals. But that means nothing if we're not looking at building the growth of the human and the growth of the person in that space in a given year. And so, yeah, it's great. It's great if they meet all their physical movement milestones. But to me, that doesn't really show me success. to me, that just shows, the achievement of that physical goal. And yeah, that's wonderful. Like I obviously love when dancers reach their new movement goals. Like when a dancer skips for the first time, or when they really start to understand the concept of right and left, things like that, those are big achievements. But it's what is behind that achievement, the pride, the excitement, the energy. I just feel like that is what is going to be propelled so much more in the growth of that person, that student, than just the skip itself or knowing the right from the left or whatnot. So just remembering that you are going into this year with a plan, and you are going into this year with great ideas and great thoughts. But if it becomes overwhelming in how that's being delivered, number one, get back to looking at how are these students in front of me growing and achieving and learning into their next level of being. And yes, dance goals are involved in that. But I just think in today's day and age, we have such a duty to be there and to encourage them and support them and to promote mindfulness, because they might not get that at school. And if they're not getting that at school, where are they getting it? Some parents take a lot of time working on mindfulness with their children, and I think that's a beautiful thing. But like the reality is I don't think that a lot do work on it. And so we being their passion space, their art space, I think it's just so important to include that as much as we can. So what summer dance taught me this year is we are moving ahead. We are moving ahead in our goals. And how can we prepare best? How can we begin a new year safely? How can we take off from what we already had done in the previous year? Where can we fill in the gaps? And also, where can we make sure that the students are getting the most fulfilled experience, the most wholesome in their training? And so I hope that this message maybe landed well with you in the sense of what is most important in our teaching, in the role of us as teachers. What is the most important thing that we can do and be for these students? And just always being that constant reminder, because achievement is wonderful, but it's the lifelong learning that is really the biggest achievement in all of this. So I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your week. I want to thank you so much, as always, for your support and listens to this podcast. And I hope that this message motivates you as you head into a new season of dance or a new week of dance. And I'm so excited for sharing even more. So make sure to tune back in next week and follow us on the podcast platform of your choosing. And if you feel called to rate a review, that would be so appreciated, as it helps to get that message out there. So thank you all so much, and we will talk next week.